What's a dark secret / questionable practice in your profession which we regular folks would know nothing about? There is a problem in substance abuse treatment in the United States called body brokering. Substance abuse treatment can be very expensive and insurance companies pay a lot of money for a patient to be there. Treatment centers will hire body brokers to find addicts with the best, highest paying insurance and entice them to check into the specific center. The treatment center then gives the broker a commission from the insurance money. This can go as far as body brokers literally putting more drugs into the hands of some addicts before they come in. BC the higher level of drugs in your system upon admit, the more and longer the insurance company will pay to the treatment center. Brokers will also hire other addicts in a pyramid scheme type way to check into the treatment center, make friends with the other patients, and upon discharge, encourage relapse so they come back to treatment. Pretty much all the high-end handmade in Australia jewelry in Australia is made at a secret factory in Bali. All the clients have to show an established business and sign confidentiality agreements. I work at a county jail in the Midwest. The most disturbing thing about jail is the terrible loop some inmates get stuck in. Many inmates with mental issues get caught in this loop where they can't have any clothes or items because they will try to kill themselves, and they are locked in their cell for 23 hours a day. This makes them more angry, so when they are finally let out they'll lash out at staff and then are locked down again. It's a vicious cycle for a lot of inmates and makes a lot of mental illness a whole lot worse. Staff can't do anything though, because if they allow the inmate with mental illness to socialize, then they risk a lawsuit from those around them. Because of the individual's history of violent outbursts, majority of hospitals won't take them because they won't risk their staff. So they are just stuck in a room and their only hope is consistent medication stabilizing them. I don't think this is necessarily dark or questionable, but I feel like it would be frowned upon. Also, sorry for any mistakes, I'm on mobile. I work at a bookstore, major chain, and sometimes we have these things called strips. Basically, it's a book that the publisher wants off the shelves but doesn't want to take back. So we tear or strip off the front cover, flog the cover, and throw the rest of the book away. And it's just not underground books either. I've seen it happen to popular books that we simply just have way too much of. Sometimes employees can take the coverless book home, but most of them just get tossed. One time, I took over $1,000 worth of study aid, Think Act, SAT, app, etc. books that were gonna be tossed and donated them to my HS teacher that I still talk to. It's sad to think these books can still benefit people, but we can't do much about it. Worked for Jones Fabric. We did the same with our magazines. Publishers just wanted the covers mailed back to verify we didn't sell them vs stolen. I'd let my employees take the rest of the magazines and any of the crafts included with them. Occasionally, if I had a number of a few, I'd donate boxes of them to a camp I used to work for. Have you ever started filling out a form for a quote on something, insurance website, or literally anything, and then changed your mind and said nah, I don't want to give them my personal information, and then abandoned the form before pressing submit? If you think that stopped them from getting your personal information, it didn't. Most companies looking to capture leads will capture your info in real time as you enter it into a form. The submit button is just there to move you to the next step, not to actually send your information to the company. Customs broker here. Every day hundreds of thousands of containers and air shipments arrive into United States territory. The volume of customs entries entered every day is staggering. When we get licensed to be a customs broker, we are trained and tested, not just on knowledge, but ethics. We even take a pledge to partner with CBP to uphold the law and cooperate with them should we come across anything suspicious. Why so much emphasis on this? Customs can't actually screen everything coming in. I'm oversimplifying, but CBP basically works on the honor system. You file an entry saying what the shipment is, and they just take your word for it and release it. This happens hundreds of thousands of times a day. Maybe at best customs can screen 3-7% of what's coming in. The rest of just wade through. Former British customs officer here can confirm The amount of international trade is staggering, and no government is able to do a 100% inspection on all the freight that arrives. So we rely on past history, shady customs brokers included lol, intel, etc to target our efforts. And no, I'm not going to divulge anything more, so don't bother asking. So, yeah, smuggling happens. Whether that's goods, drugs or people. But when we do find something, expect the world to drop on your head. Government wants its revenue, boys and girls, and it doesn't like being cheated of them, or finding 30+ dead people in a shipping container, at all. You know, the people who write instruction manuals or user guides and things you buy, half the time, they've never even seen or touched the product. Some dude just sends us pictures, a rough description of how it's supposed to work, and that's it. Eater, wow, this took off. To all the dudes of Reddit, I actually browse the brand specific subreddits to figure out what to add to my user guides, because that's how little info my company provides me. Thanks for making my life easier. Instruction manual writer here. Although for software, you know how there are always frequently asked questions. I have no idea what's frequently asked. I make all of them up. Not currently my profession, but ghostwriters in fiction. John Grisham, Danielle Steele, James Patterson, Janet Ivanovich, etc. All those big names with a net bestseller every year use ghostwriters who are never credited or mentioned. It's barely even a secret. At a very large pizza chain restaurant that remains widely popular, we had these perforated pans for thin crust and stuffed crust pizzas. They'd get washed in the dishwasher by the hundreds per day, and at least half would still have burnt cheese and shit on them. Well, they were just stacked to dry when making new pizzas in those pans. Sometimes the pans that were left to dry overnight grew bits of mold around the burnt cheese. We were told just to put the dough on top, because otherwise we'd never keep up with the orders if we rewashed everything. The manager said, "Don't worry, it gets cooked." Oh gosh. I worked at a couple pizza places, 2 big chain ones. At one, the grease was unreal. The dishwasher basically had to be scraped once a day to get the thick film off. They didn't have an actual dishwasher either. Just made the drivers clean them, and the drivers didn't want to do the dishes, so they'd just toss them in there haphazardly. I can't tell you how many times I'd find pans with a layer of oil still in them and have to send a bunch back through. My husband worked there for a short period long after I quit. He said he caught one of the managers dipping plates in the sanitizing water and just sending them back out. Disgusting. The second big chain was all hand washed and done properly, but I think that was more specific store based than anything. Sometimes we lick artifacts to quickly determine if they are bone or pottery. Bone sticks, pottery doesn't. And then tap them on our teeth to determine if they are pottery or a rock. Rock will hurt, pottery won't. Archaeology. A lot of the time the engineer you talk to about your project and decide to trust with it delegates it to cheaper contractors as soon as you sign the paperwork. Their job is new business. Air traffic control. Cue the Breaking Bad jokes. A diagnosis of virtually any mental illness and a diagnosis of many physical conditions is disqualifying and will end your career. For that reason, people avoid doctors like the plague. I work in logistics / trucking / rail / ocean / air freight. Everyone lies about everything all the time. Padding paperwork, studies to slow an auditor down. Every data point, all the minutiae of the calculations. Unnecessarily dense explanations of statistical methods that go on at length with notes about distribution fitting. They, auditors, aren't usually very technical, so they stop at each spot along the way without realizing they can throw half the thing out. If you're good, you can balloon a 30-page document into 100 in a matter of minutes. Edit. I keep getting angry comments from finance people. Simmer down. This isn't about you. If you think it is, reread the post. Do you audit studies? Is distribution fitting relevant to you? Your industry does not own the term audit. Thanks. Lots of performing musicians don't ever really get over stage fright. Many of them take beta blockers to help with nerves. although it's less about the mental side of it and more the fact that you physically can't perform if you get so nervous that your hands are shaking. That's what beta blockers help with. You'll probably still feel anxious mentally, but any physical effects like shaking or sweating will be gone. Not really a dark secret, as there's not usually bad side effects of beta blockers, but I guess some people might see that as cheating in a way. Personally, I find it kind of inspiring knowing that lots of people struggle with the same thing as me, and there's a solution that isn't just suck it up and deal with it. Many hotels often sell rooms multiple times. Used to work in airport hotel, knowing that chances are some guests won't arrive due to missed or delayed flights, so we sell more rooms that we have. You have guests checking out from 2/3 am due to early flights, so even though the room is technically still fizz, you quickly and sometimes poorly clean the room and tell the arriving unexpected guest or new booking there's a random computer issue and to wait 20 minutes and then check them into the departed guest's room praying. Multiple times I've had to run a kettle under a cold tap to hide the fact the previous guest used it 15 minutes before the new guest arrives. Airlines do this shit with airplane seats too. I once had a connecting flight while heading back to college, which was, luckily, not a long flight, and I had plenty of time. They pulled this crap and initially wanted someone to forego their seat for a $50 coupon. I let it go up to a $250 direct check and then volunteered, and they still tried to go with credit toward a ticket. I only took the check and got paid that amount for a couple hours watching Netflix in the airport. Many bills are literally written by lobbyists or special interest organizations. I have seen my boss give bill language to a state legislator and then found the same language in print a few days later several times. The bill may change in committee, but usually not drastically against the original intent. You do not want to know how long food sits on the loading dock before it gets into the cooler. How many people who work with children, teachers, child co-workers, etc. don't follow confidentiality guidelines, gossiping about families with coworkers, talking about children's home situations, creeping families' social media, etc. Any people who are supposed to follow confidentiality guidelines. Both my parents work in the penitentiary. Dad is a prison warden. Mom is a secretary at the probation office. I grew up with discussions of the lives of inmates and people on probation around the table. My parents would also, discreetly, point out to me people in the street they wanted me to avoid: the sex offenders, kiddie diddlers, and druggies. I worked in a restaurant, and they told me the sweet old regular the waitresses liked so much is an absolute pervert. My dad told me he'd make holes in his pockets to touch himself. I work at a theme park and we use codes with number 4 situation that could happen in the park to not create panic. We also use codes for some category of people, like a code 25 means there's a fire. Code 20 is for mentally disabled people. We also use hand signals sometimes for some situations. When we take x-rays of your pelvis, we can see your penis, and we can see your labial folds. I'm sure most know this, but 99% of advertisements involving real people is acted and scripted, even when the people being interviewed are indeed non-actors. They are prompted on what to say. For example, recently we interviewed a guy who won a car from one of our brands. First round, interviewer: congrats on your win. How do you feel? Guy: UHH. Really great. It's a real surprise, to be honest. Thank you. After several rounds and coaching, interviewer: congrats on your win. How do you feel? Guy: I feel so lucky to have won a brand car. The design and handling is first rate, and I'm most impressed by the fuel consumption. I will definitely keep on holding brand as my top car of choice. Some stores that sell used merchandise like video games and movies will pay you money for stolen stuff, even when they know it's stolen. It doesn't hurt them to get brand new games that were only released hours ago for a fraction of the cost. Then they turn around and sell them for $5 cheaper than a new copy. They are getting brand new never opened $60 games for a few bucks and making a huge profit. There is at least one water bottle slash soda can slash energy drink spray paint can sitting on a piece of blocking behind your drywall somewhere in your house. Edit. Wow. This took off. Thank you for your plentiful updates. This is my first comment to break 1000. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.